Hello, and welcome everybody to Paramedical Personnel of Maryland's November podcast for 2021. A few things to talk about this time. Try not to make it too long for you. I know how crazy that can be in today's schedule. Thanksgiving coming up, so let me say thank you for all those turkeys that give their lives in memory of Happy Turkey Day. Okay? So with that said, let's get started. First thing off the bat, again, remember to click that subscribe and like button at the top of your image right there, so that everybody kind of knows that they like the program, and you'll be automatically notified when the next program loads. So you actually don't have to wait for the newsletter to tell you it's there. You'll actually get notification with an email saying, hey, listen, the new podcast for PPM's up and running. Kind of neat. So let's do that. First thing off the bat are sick or injured instructors, sick or injured. What that means is if you're coming up on refresher, it's time to renew your instructor card, and you've got an issue. You're somehow sick or injured or been in a car accident, whatever, and you can't do something, then you need to let us know. Though we don't need to know your entire medical history of what's going on, but we need to know that you won't be able to meet your requirement for instructorship because that you are out for some medical reason. With that said, if you are truly out for some medical reason, that means you will not be teaching classes because of that medical reason. Okay? And so don't call and say, gee, I taught 10 classes with an expired card because I was medically unable to do the classes. Okay, now think that through. Does that make sense to you? Doesn't make sense to me. If you're medically injured that you can't do something, then you're not out teaching either. Really kind of enough said. We talked the last presentation about that in October, and so enough said about that. You can't teach if you can't teach. Don't otherwise you're selling cards. What else is new with PPM? Okay, our car, as you know, some of you may know, we had a company car. We got two company vehicles, a truck for pulling our trailers to locations, and we have a car for our instructors to use when they're out teaching. So all the equipment's in the back trunk of the car and everything. And our car was sitting at a red light, and a pickup truck rear-ended the car at a fairly high rate of speed. Needless to say, when I got the chance to see the car, the trunk was somewhere where the rear window of the car should be. So literally this guy hit that car like a ton of bricks. And just looking at it, I kind of figured, yeah, this is not going to survive the insurance company. And sure enough, it did not. So the car got totaled. We literally just had it towed away the other day. From here, we had it brought here for the insurance guy to come out and look at. And so the damages were significant enough that they said, yeah, this car has been totaled. So we no longer have a company car. Debating whether we're going to get another company car because it really wasn't used that often. Most of our people prefer to use their own vehicles and load the equipment up and use their own vehicles. If you do use your own vehicle, we pay mileage. Literally from your house to the class and back to your house is what we pay for mileage. And right now the government comment, or how much that is supposed to be, is rated at 56 cents per mile. So then, well, how do we calculate that? What if you forget to write your mileage down? Well, what we do is with Google Maps, we can literally locate your house to the class and then double the mileage. It tells you the mileage time, tells you everything. So that's what we use as the basic guidelines for our mileage to and from the class. So that you get that. So if you do forget it, don't worry about it. We'll get that caught up when we send you out your payment for teaching the class for us. Next thing is a reminder that the vaccines are due by January 1. The newsletter that we just sent out last month talked about that as well. We don't necessarily need a copy of your card, although that's nice. Many of our instructors have already sent us a copy of their card, so we literally put that in their file. So we've got it on file and record that you got your vaccine. Or you can just send us an email saying, hey, I've been vaccinated. That we take your word for that. This is a statement, a legal statement of record that you have been vaccinated. So we don't necessarily need to see your vaccinated card, your CDC card. At least not yet. That hasn't become a requirement. But we fall under a couple of reasons. One, I think that everybody should be vaccinated. I'm certainly pro-vaccine. And number two, since we do federal contracts, we fall under the guideline for federal contractors dealing with the federal government, and our people are required to be vaccinated. So kind of a dual thing there, but I'm 100% behind vaccines as it is. Okay, secret word for podcast. Secret word for podcast. Forgot to put one in the last podcast, and which was odd because nobody caught the fact that we forgot to put a secret word. So what I would have accepted if somebody would have sent an email saying, "Hey, what was the secret word?" That would have been secret enough. But this podcast, the secret word is sea otter. I'll say it again, sea otter. Sea otter is our secret word. So if you send me an email, the email goes to becker@ppmems.com, and put in there that the secret word for the November podcast was sea otter, and we'll send you out a little gift. We were a little late on our gift a couple months ago. Our one instructor contacted us, and she hadn't gotten her gift, and that was on us. We forgot to send it, so apologies there, but we did get it in the mail. She's got it en route as we speak, and I think she'll like our little gift we sent. A question came in reference to the difference between basic life support and Heart Saver classes. Now, if you watched the last podcast, I talked about basic life support and the differences between that and Heart Saver, more of on an instructor level. So that is in what can an instructor teach as part of that program. This question is more or less for the student. What's the difference between programs? And the basic life support is really geared more for medical providers. It's geared for like hospital personnel, running codes, how to set the code team up, who does what for the code team. So there's a lot more medical concepts, medical terminology. So it really is geared for anybody medically tied to this world. Doesn't have to be though. A lay person can take the basic life support course. So especially if they've had it before, not an issue because they'll know the terms. Really, terminology hasn't changed. The skill level has not changed all these years for basic life support. So it is designed for medical providers, but anyone can take it. The Heart Saver program is literally the basic CPR program for lay general public. If you're a daycare provider, you really only need the Heart Saver program. So it talks about adult, child, and infant. It goes into all three. Everything is a 30:2 ratio, so you don't have to worry about the different numbers and if you're doing a peds or no, everything's 30:2. It's all one person CPR. The emphasis is made on somebody calling 911 and doing your skills. And literally you can receive a Heart Saver card by doing the best you can do. Okay, so it's not as critical on the skills. We certainly go over the skills, make sure that you know what to do, but we're not as critical as we are on the basic life support folks, making sure they do this 100% correctly, because they're going to be more likely to do this in a medical environment than you are just walking the street. Okay? So that's the real difference, and hopefully that clears that up with the difference between the two classes. As an instructor, you should know the difference between two classes, and as an instructor, you really need to go to the PAM manual, review the PAM manual, and review your textbooks for both the Heart Saver textbook and the Basic Life Support textbook. Both of those have a ton of knowledge, and you'll be able to see the difference in classes that way as well. Okay. Okay, send rosters. One of the other things that our administrative branch keeps getting is, when do we send rosters? And so I'll bring this again. This is more for instructors again. For instructors, if you do a Basic Life Support or Heart Saver class, in other words, an American Heart Association program, when you send that card, and by the way, cards given to the students are a requirement of any American Heart Association card. You are required to give that student a card. If you don't believe me, again, look it up in your PAM man. You'll have access to that. But every student gets a card. And so when you send that card to the student, what that does is we can actually see the record of what cards you've issued and actually see your roster of who was in that class. So if you're doing an American Heart Association program, which 98% of our group is doing, then really no roster is required because we have access to your class, who you taught. If you're still doing an ASHE class, American Safety and Health Institute, an ASHE program, we cannot see those cards that you issue. So for an ASHE class, you still send in the roster. The address hasn't changed. Send it to roster, R-O-S-T-E-R, at ppmems.com. Okay, so remember that should be in a PDF format. Don't send a picture of it, because then we have to convert it to a PDF, and that's just kind of messy. So really it should be in a PDF format. In other words, scanned as a PDF, not as a photograph, not as a JPEG. Okay, so if you understand what I'm saying, again, as a PDF. And then we put that in our file, and we maintain that for 1 year past the expiration date. So expiration date's 2 years, we maintain it for 3 years before we delete it out of the system. Okay, again, that's we follow the HA guidelines on that as far as how long we keep stuff. Now, that pretty much sums it up as far as what's required for the classes, what's new, what's happened. Reminder again about the child mannequin. We want you to have those child mannequins by January 1. Plenty of notice. And make sure you're vaccinated by January 1. And that pretty much wraps up everything we need to talk about for our November podcast. And again, have a happy Thanksgiving. Please stay safe, and we'll talk again soon.